It begins with a whisper, not of sound but of awareness. A quiet line, ancient and elusive. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. These words drift through centuries like mist over mountains, ungraspable yet alive. Imagine standing at dawn, watching fog curl over a still lake. You reach out to describe it, yet the moment you speak, it shifts, disperses, escapes. The essence of what you saw, what you felt, cannot be contained by the words you choose. We live in an age obsessed with definition. We name everything, brand everything, categorize even our emotions: joy, sadness, anxiety, peace. But perhaps what is most sacred in life is what refuses to be defined. There's a space between the word and the truth, between the name and the essence. And it is in that space that the Tao breathes. So, if what can be spoken is not the true Tao, what then is the real one? And how do we find it in a world that never stops talking? We live in an age of language, a world built upon words, captions, and declarations. Every moment is documented, every thought broadcast. Our silence has become rare, our inner voice drowned beneath the noise of constant explanation. We tweet our pain before we feel it. We define love before we live it. And in our obsession to say what we mean, we've forgotten how to be what we feel. The paradox is simple, yet devastating. The more we speak, the less we understand. The louder we shout our truths, the farther we drift from them. A man posts his morning affirmation about peace while scrolling through conflict. A woman writes about stillness between calendar alerts. We are all trying to describe the Tao while sprinting away from it, trying to hold infinity in 280 characters. Our ancestors once sat beneath the stars, humbled by the vastness. Now we light up our screens and call it enlightenment. But can a truth that lives only in pixels ever touch the eternal? We build temples of information, podcasts, books, TED Talks. Yet we leave no space for mystery. Even our spirituality has been marketed, repackaged into 10 easy steps to mindfulness. The Tao becomes a hashtag. Wisdom becomes a quote card. We speak about surrender, but we cannot stop trying to control. We praise balance, yet we rush from task to task. We seek simplicity while multiplying our desires. The modern paradox is that in our endless pursuit to define life, we have lost the ability to experience it. We are fluent in words, but illiterate in silence. And so the ancient saying still echoes through this digital storm. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Because perhaps truth doesn't want to be captured. It wants to be felt. The Tao is not a doctrine. It is not a religion, nor a set of rules to follow. It is the current beneath all rivers, the silence beneath all sound, the space that holds both light and shadow. When Lao Tzu wrote, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao," he was warning us, not against speaking, but against mistaking words for truth. For language is a map, not the territory. You can study 1,000 maps of the mountain, but until you climb it, you'll never feel the wind cutting through its ridges, or the way silence hums at the summit. Truth, like the Tao, is something to be experienced, not explained. It lives not in the saying, but in the seeing. Not in the defining, but in the dissolving. Think about how we cling to labels. Good, bad, right, wrong. We divide the world into categories to feel safe, but in doing so we amputate the fullness of life. The Tao invites us to unlearn this habit, to stand once again in mystery, to let things simply be. A flower does not need to name its beauty. A river does not describe its flow. The moon does not announce its light. It simply shines. And perhaps that is the essence of the Tao, to live in harmony with what is, without forcing it to fit our language. But we resist this simplicity, because to live without definition feels like surrender, like losing control. We fear what cannot be captured, yet that fear is precisely what keeps us small. When we stop naming, we start noticing. When we stop grasping, we start receiving. When we stop speaking, we start hearing what life has been whispering all along. The Tao teaches that the moment we think we understand, we have already lost it. Because the eternal cannot be held by the temporary, and words are the most temporary of all. So what does it mean then to live by the Tao? It means walking without forcing the path. It means acting without obsession for outcome. It means seeing the beauty in contradiction, that gain and loss are not enemies but mirrors. When we realize this, we return to something deeply human, a trust in the flow of things. We no longer chase meaning. We let meaning emerge. We no longer demand clarity. We allow understanding to dawn in its own time. In this way, the Tao is not something to know. It is something to become. To live in Tao is to dissolve the boundaries between the self and the universe until you are no longer walking through life. Life is walking through you. And perhaps that's why Lao Tzu never defined it, because the moment you do, you turn infinity into an object, the sacred into a soundbite. So let us not ask, what is the Tao? Let us ask instead, can I be quiet enough to feel it moving through me? Once, in a small mountain village wrapped in clouds, there lived an old craftsman named Wei. He carved wooden flutes, not for money, not for fame, but simply because the wind loved to sing through them. Each morning, Wei would walk to the edge of the river, select a piece of bamboo, and listen. He didn't measure or plan. He simply ran his fingers along the stem until he felt which one was ready. Then he'd cut it, shape it, and wait. Sometimes days would pass before he made a single note. A young traveler once visited him, frustrated by the stillness. "Why do you waste so much time listening?" the traveler asked. "If you hurry, you could make dozens more flutes. You could sell them, become known." Wei smiled softly. "I don't make the flute," he said. "I let it make itself." The traveler didn't understand. He thought wisdom meant mastery, control, precision, production. But Wei's wisdom was surrender. He didn't force the sound. He waited for the bamboo to reveal the song it already held. One afternoon, a storm swept through the valley, breaking his roof and flooding his workshop. His flutes were scattered down the river. The traveler returned, certain Wei would be devastated. But the old man just watched the water carry his work away. He said quietly, "The river knows where to take them. My part was never to own the music, only to shape the silence that let it be heard." That night, under the dim lantern light, Wei picked up a single piece of broken bamboo. It was cracked, misshapen, imperfect. Yet when he blew gently into it, a tone emerged, soft, trembling, pure. The sound filled the room, haunting and whole. The traveler listened, tears welling in his eyes. For the first time he understood. The beauty of the flute was not in its perfection, but in its emptiness, the space within that allowed the breath to move through it. And in that moment, the traveler realized what the Tao truly was. It wasn't something to possess or define. It was the invisible harmony between the breath and the hollow, between being and letting be. As dawn broke, Wei handed the flute to the traveler. "Take it," he said, "but do not play to impress. Play to remember the sound of stillness." The traveler bowed, speechless. He never saw Wei again, but every time he played, he felt that same wind, gentle, eternal, moving through the hollow spaces of his heart. And he finally understood what words could never say. The Tao does not speak, yet it is heard by all who are silent enough to listen. There is a moment, somewhere deep within every human life, when noise becomes unbearable. When the world's voices, the endless opinions, expectations, explanations, blur into a single, exhausting hum. And in that fatigue, something ancient inside us begins to whisper, "Enough." That whisper is the Tao, calling us home. We spend our lives chasing definitions of who we are, what we want, what we should become. But definitions are cages carved from words. We decorate them, defend them, even worship them, yet still they confine us. We say, "I am successful," and then fear losing success. We say, "I am kind," and then resent moments when kindness costs us something. We say, "I am spiritual," and then measure ourselves against the illusion of enlightenment. Each label we cling to becomes a wall that separates us from the vastness we were born to touch. But when the walls collapse, when failure humbles us, when love ends, when the meanings we built dissolve, what remains is terrifyingly empty and beautifully free. The emptiness is not a void to escape. It is the space in which everything real begins. Like the hollow of Wei's flute, it is where life's music passes through. When you no longer need to speak your truth, you start living it. When you stop seeking validation, your existence itself becomes proof. When you stop naming the divine, you begin to feel it pulsing in every breath. That is the essence of Tao, not in the noise of knowing, but in the quiet rhythm of being. The world tells us that peace comes from control, from success, from having the right words, the right image, the right life. But peace comes only when we release the need to control, when we let things flow as they are, unspoken, unforced, unowned. In that release, something profound unfolds. We see that the river has always known its way. We see that the flute was always waiting for the breath. We see that we were never separate from the mystery, only distracted by our need to explain it. And maybe that is the ultimate paradox, that what we've been searching for in all our words, our prayers, our philosophies, has been silently present the whole time. The Tao has never hidden itself. It is the sound between the notes, the pause between heartbeats, the stillness before the dawn. When you finally stop trying to name it, you realize you have always been living in it. So now, let the words fall away. Let the noise settle, like dust returning to the earth. In this quiet, ask yourself, who are you when there is nothing left to prove? The Tao was never hiding in the mountains or in the scriptures. It lives in the breath you just took, in the gap between one thought and the next, in the patient rhythm of your heartbeat. You do not have to find it. You only have to stop running from it. When you pause, when you allow, when you surrender the need to define, the world begins to speak in a language older than words. Every leaf trembling in the wind, every moment of stillness after pain, every unspoken act of kindness, all of it is the Tao. And so, perhaps the next time life feels chaotic or unclear, you might resist the urge to name or fix it. Instead, breathe. Feel the silence between sounds. And remember, the eternal cannot be spoken, but it can be lived. If you can carry that silence into your day, you will begin to see the invisible harmony in everything. A soft truth that does not demand to be understood, only felt. Because in the end, the Tao is not something outside of you. It is you, the part of you that was never lost, never defined, never divided from the flow of all things. And in that realization, you have already returned home.